Hi there, my name is Hepzibah Frances. Welcome back once again to my YouTube channel. We are still on the testimony series of answered prayers from God. And today I want to share with you the testimony of an answered prayer when God provided for the printing of my books when I didn't have a dime, like literally. So the year was 2015, and that year I was serving during NYC, and God had led me into my purpose work. He had told me to go to secondary schools and speak to young girls about purpose and purity. And I started doing this monthly. And the second thing he had told me was to keep writing on my blog and to stay faithful on the blog. So I started doing that, and then I would also write on Bella Nigeria. And I remember one day I got an email from someone who was asking me a question about purpose. And as I started to answer the email, the Holy Spirit was like, "This is a book." I'm like, "What? No!" But I obeyed and I started to write the book. That was how I started writing my first book. And I had some savings, so I started to inquire about how much it would cost to print a book. I wanted to print 100 copies because I had calculated from the savings in my account I could afford 100 copies of printed to print the books. But God was like 1,000 copies, I think, and 1,000 copies was about 130,000 naira then as at that 2015. I'm like, what? How is this money going to come? Where is it going to come from? But I continued praying about it. And if you've read the book The Science of Answered Prayers, you know about how to pray to the point where you get a rest and you know that it is done. And I got that. I prayed till the point where I literally knew that this was done. I mean, I was sharing because he had told me that the book launch was going to happen. I should make it a part of my work with secondary schools, invite different schools. I printed out invitation letters, put a date on those invitation letters when I didn't even know how the money will come to print those books. I was so sure in my spirit. In short, the day I went to share those invitation letters, I was laughing at myself. I'm like, "You are crazy." I was crazy, but I had prayed to the point where faith had taken over and I knew that it was done. So how did the money come? When I was praying, God told me, "A stranger will I raise to help you." Like strangers, people that you don't know. I was like, okay. And I had a blog. I was putting it out that I was writing a book, and I was also putting out that people, because we wanted to give out free copies at the secondary school, so I started putting out that people who wanted to sponsor free copies should reach out to us. So people sponsored free copies, right? And then people started giving from everywhere. People sent me Western Union from the US. People gave monies from everywhere. And that was not just all. When we finished the book launch at Ekiti State, then my PPA state where I was serving Nigeria as a youth corper, my pastor from Lagos called me and he was like, "I want to have a book launch for you at church here in Lagos. When are you going to be in Lagos?" Like, I didn't ask for it. God just opened the door. And when we had that launch at Lagos, I shared my testimony of deliverance from sexual addictions and how God had led me through and brought me into this place of purpose. And the church was a church with mighty men. And people started giving. People were writing checks. Like, the books were not even enough. We sold that. It was 100 copies or something, or more. I didn't carry more, but we sold all those copies. And then people started giving. People wrote checks. And I cried. When I held the checks in my hands, I cried. Not the money made me cry, but like, it was my first testimony of seeing God provide for a work in my hands. It was my first testimony of seeing that when I put my faith in God, that God was going to come true for me. And that I may not know how God would come true for me, but that he is going to come true, and that he's faithful, that faithful is he who has sent me on a work, or faithful is he who has put a dream in my heart. It was my first experience of seeing that if God puts a dream in my heart, and that if God puts a promise in my heart, that he was going to do it. And that I may not know how he would do it, but that he would do it. I cried. I was like, God, I wasn't expecting it. I didn't ask for it. But on the other side of faith was this huge breakthrough that God had prepared for me. So yeah, there you have it. Another testimony of an answered prayer where I saw God come through for me from a series of prayers that I had made, and he was waiting for me at the other side of what he had said.